was one of those exclusive parties you hear about, but never expect to get an invite to. A friend of a friend got us on the list, and before I knew it, I was standing outside a sleek, modern house in a gated community, waiting to get in. The whole thing had an air of mystery about it, the kind of party where people go to show off, network, and generally act like they're in an episode of a glamorous TV drama. Inside, the place was even more impressive. Expensive artwork adorned the walls, a grand piano stood in the corner, and the whole place was bathed in a soft, warm glow from carefully placed lights. The host, a guy named Marcus, was one of those people who seemed to know everyone and everything. He welcomed us with a wide smile, offered drinks, and pointed us to the main area where the real fun was happening. As the night progressed, the crowd became more intoxicated, laughter and conversation mixing with the thumping bass of the music. I stuck with my small group of friends, not knowing most of the other guests, but feeling the buzz of the atmosphere. It was around midnight when Marcus made an announcement, his voice cutting through the chatter. "Ladies and gentlemen, for those looking for a little thrill, the Red Room is open." The murmurs started immediately. The Red Room was something of a legend, a hidden part of the house where only a select few were allowed. Rumors swirled about what went on inside. Some said it was just a fancy lounge, others whispered about it being a place for more illicit activities. Naturally, my curiosity was piqued, and before I knew it, my friends and I were heading toward a door guarded by a serious-looking guy with a clipboard. Marcus appeared again, grinning like he'd just pulled off the greatest prank. "Only the brave, huh?" he chuckled, opening the door for us. We stepped through into a dimly lit hallway that led to another door. The second door was painted a deep crimson, a color so dark it was almost black. As it opened, we were hit by a wave of warm red light. The room was eerie. The walls were covered in red velvet, giving the place a strangely luxurious yet claustrophobic feel. Soft red lighting bathed everything in a surreal glow, and there was a faint, sweet scent in the air, like roses and something else I couldn't quite place. The only furniture was a long, low table in the center of the room, and around it, about a dozen people were seated on cushions. They all turned to look at us as we entered, their faces blank, almost expressionless. Marcus walked in behind us, closing the door and locking it with a soft click that sounded ominous in the otherwise silent room. "Welcome," he said, gesturing to the table. "Please, join us." We sat down, feeling the tension in the air. I noticed a small box in the middle of the table, a simple wooden thing with intricate carvings. Marcus opened it slowly, revealing what looked like cards. He started dealing them out to everyone, his expression unreadable. "A little game," he said, handing out the last card. "Just for fun." I glanced at my card. It was blank. Confused, I looked around and saw that everyone else had the same blank card. Then Marcus pulled out a single red card from the bottom of the box. He held it up, the red seeming even more vibrant in the room's lighting. "One of these cards," he said, his voice low, "is not like the others. Whoever gets it, well, let's just say you'll have a unique experience." Everyone held their breath as Marcus shuffled the cards again and placed them face down on the table. We all reached for a card, and I felt a chill run down my spine as I picked mine up. I flipped it over, still blank. A nervous laugh bubbled up from the group, but it died quickly as we all turned to see who had the red card. A girl at the end of the table, someone I didn't know, held it up. Her face was pale, her eyes wide. Marcus smiled, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Congratulations," he said softly. The room felt like it was holding its breath. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. What do you think really happened in that mysterious red room? Was it just a twisted game, or did we stumble upon something far darker than we could imagine? Have you ever been in a situation where curiosity led you somewhere you weren't sure you wanted to be? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. And if this tale left you unsettled, stay tuned. The next one, The Basement Ritual, will take you on an even more eerie journey. You won't want to miss what happens next. I'd heard about underground parties, but this was different. My friend Jake called me up one Friday night, buzzing with excitement. "Dude, there's this secret rave in an abandoned church basement. You've got to come." It sounded sketchy, but curiosity got the best of me. And by 11 p.m., I was meeting Jake and a few others at a deserted parking lot. We walked a few blocks until we reached an old, decrepit church, its windows boarded up and walls covered in graffiti. A small crowd was gathered outside, some people smoking, others chatting excitedly. The entrance was a narrow staircase leading down to what must have been the basement. A couple of bouncers stood at the top, checking IDs and letting people in one by one. The air felt heavy as we descended, the sounds of muffled bass growing louder. The basement was surprisingly spacious, dimly lit by neon lights and decorated with strange symbols painted on the walls. The air was thick with smoke, the scent of incense mingling with the acrid smell of sweat. At the far end of the room, a DJ was spinning tracks, his face obscured by a hood. The crowd was a mix of goths, ravers, and people who just looked like they wandered in from the street. Jake and I grabbed drinks from a makeshift bar set up against one wall. The atmosphere was intoxicating, a mix of thumping music, dim lights, and the feeling that anything could happen. We danced for a while, lost in the music and the energy of the crowd. But then things started to get weird. Around 1 a.m., the DJ abruptly cut the music, and a hush fell over the crowd. A man stepped up to the microphone. He was tall, with long, greasy hair and a gaunt face that looked like it hadn't seen the sun in years. He raised his hands, and the crowd parted, revealing a circle drawn on the floor with what looked like chalk. In the center of the circle was a large, ornate chest. The man's eyes gleamed as he spoke, his voice low and raspy. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the highlight of our evening. A ritual as old as time, one that will reveal the secrets of the universe." He gestured dramatically, and two people dressed in black robes appeared, each carrying a small candle. They placed the candles at the edge of the circle, lighting them one by one. The flames flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Jake nudged me, looking uneasy. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. I shrugged, just as confused. The crowd was silent, watching with bated breath as the man continued. "We invite you to join us to witness the unveiling of the truth," he said, his eyes scanning the room. He pointed to a girl near the front, who looked like she was in her early 20s. She seemed startled but stepped forward, as if in a trance. The man smiled, a creepy, toothy grin, and motioned for her to enter the circle. She hesitated but eventually stepped inside. The man handed her a small, silver knife, its blade catching the light from the candles. The crowd watched, mesmerized, as she stared at the knife, then at the chest. "Now," the man intoned, "reveal your deepest desires, your darkest fears." The girl looked terrified, but as if compelled, she knelt by the chest and opened it. A gust of cold air blew through the room, and the candles flickered wildly. Inside the chest, something glowed, a soft, pulsating light. The girl reached in, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. The air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Then she screamed, a piercing, blood-curdling scream that sent chills down my spine. She pulled her hand out, clutching a small, glowing orb. Her face twisted in horror, eyes wide with terror. The crowd erupted into chaos. People shoved and pushed, trying to get away from the circle, from the man, from the horrifying scene unfolding before them. Jake grabbed my arm, pulling me towards the stairs. As we rushed up, I looked back and saw the girl collapse, the orb rolling away from her lifeless hand. We didn't stop running until we were out of the church and halfway down the block. My heart was pounding and my mind was racing. What the hell had we just witnessed? Some twisted ritual? A prank gone horribly wrong? We never found out. The next day, the news reported that an abandoned church had been raided by the police, but no details were given. No mention of the party, the chest, or the orb. It was like the whole thing had never happened. Jake and I swore never to talk about it again, but sometimes in the quiet of the night, I can't help but wonder what that girl saw, what that orb was, and what secrets the church basement still hides. It was supposed to be just another Halloween bash, the kind where everyone dresses up and things get a little wild. I was invited to a party at an old mansion on the outskirts of town, one of those places you see and think, that must be haunted. But it wasn't the setting that made the night unforgettable. It was what happened. As I walked into the house, I felt like I'd stepped into a different world. The dim lighting, fake cobwebs, and eerie music set the perfect tone. People were dressed in all sorts of costumes, from vampires to superheroes. I went as a pirate. Typical, I know, but I wasn't feeling particularly creative. The host, Sarah, had gone all out with the decorations, and there was even a fog machine in the backyard, making everything feel like a scene from a horror movie. As the night went on, things got rowdy. The living room was packed, and the makeshift dance floor was a chaotic mess of bodies. I lost track of my friends almost immediately and found myself chatting with strangers, swapping stories, and generally enjoying the atmosphere. Then, around midnight, the lights flickered and the music cut off. Everyone groaned, assuming it was just a power surge. But when the lights came back on, a guy in a black hoodie and a plain white mask stood in the middle of the room, completely still. You know those moments when the room gets so quiet, you could hear a pin drop? This was one of those. People stared, some giggled nervously, but no one said anything. We all thought it was a prank. "Nice mask, dude," someone shouted, breaking the silence. But the masked guy didn't respond. He just stood there, staring, if you can call it that when someone's wearing a mask. Then he started moving. Slowly at first, then with purpose, weaving through the crowd without saying a word. It was unsettling, but everyone kept playing it off, trying to make light of it. "This is next level creepy," I whispered to a girl next to me. She nodded, wide-eyed, as we both watched him. Suddenly, the masked stranger pulled a small knife from his hoodie. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly, tension thick enough to cut. Someone screamed, and that was the cue for everyone to freak out. People pushed and shoved, trying to get away, but the guy just stood there, holding the knife up, as if savoring the chaos he'd caused. "Get out!" Sarah screamed from somewhere behind me, her voice cutting through the panic. "Everyone, just get out!" But the exit was jammed, people clawing over each other in their rush to leave. I was caught in the middle of it, trying to make my way out, but I couldn't help looking back. The masked guy just stood there, knife in hand, watching us like we were his own personal horror show. Finally, we managed to break through the bottleneck at the door and spilled out onto the lawn. Someone called the police, and it felt like hours before they arrived, though it was probably only minutes. We stood there, shivering in the cold, waiting for the cops to handle the situation. When they finally went in, they found the masked man sitting on the couch, knife laid neatly on the coffee table, mask still on. He surrendered without a fight. Turned out, the guy was an escapee from a nearby mental institution, his mask hiding a face that had been all over the news for weeks. They took him away, and the party ended in the most horrifying way possible, no one really knowing what could have happened if things had gone differently. If you want to see more horror stories, Check out my next video.